Hi everyone, in this lesson we are going to talk about something called the CPV triangle. Okay, so let's do just a little bit of an introduction though, because one thing we have to realize is that the heart of everything in this everything we do in this world revolves around volley and voluntary exchange. This could be whether we're entrepreneurs, whether we are business professionals, or even just our basic roles in society, our everyday lives. And in those things, we are making hundreds of voluntary exchanges every week, and sometimes even every day. Sometimes it comes through exchanging currency for goods or services. Sometimes it's in exchange of behaviors or actions. And so the key to understanding of and our ability to engage in markets, and remember that markets are a place where you exchange one thing of value for something else of value. So our key to understanding this is our ability to create win-win. And to understand win-win, we have to create value on both sides of an exchange. So when we create value on both sides of an exchange, especially when it comes to business, things that we are creating include raving fan customers, we're creating gung-ho employees, and we're creating long-term financial success. And when we do this, it leads to prosperity for ourselves, for our families, for our communities. So there's something called the CPV triangle. This gives us a way to examine beneficial trade and voluntary exchange. It also is a way that we can look at marketplace decisions in the heat of taking action. So let's first off look at the left side of this triangle. So here's our CPV triangle, right? So this is our left side that we're gonna look at right here. This left side correlates to pricing and profit. C is equal to cost and P is equal to price. And one thing you have to realize is that price is like a pendulum, okay, because it fluctuates, and it can fluctuate depending on market conditions or the seller's pricing decisions. And price allocates profit in an exchange, because price minus cost, or cost of goods sold, that equals your seller's profit right here, okay? So what are some options when to increase the seller's profit? Well, there's basically two. You can either raise the price, or you can lower or cut your costs. And there's a lot of business owners out there who typically focus only on this left side of the CPV triangle. They think, I want to make money for me, so therefore I must raise prices or I've got to cut costs. But when they do that, they're really only seeing half of the picture. So when we are thinking about either raising prices or cutting costs, okay, well, what are some ways to cut costs? Well, we can change suppliers, we can buy in bulk, we can share space, which lowers our overhead, or we can cut costs, we can outsource. But cost cutting is only limited. It's limited. Notice how here we've got the end of our line here. There's a dot. You can only cut your costs so much. There's only so much that you can cut. And sometimes if we lower our quality in cutting costs, it reduces costs. But it also lowers value. And that represents bad cost cutting. And value is not created on both sides. So we need to become. So what are some effects to raising a price? Well, if we raise our price, we can lower the demand, possibly could lower demand, or it could create inflation. What about the effects of lowering costs? We were just talking about some of the ways to cut costs. Okay, well, you might have lower quality. Again, lower quality, though, could also lower the value. Could also lose your staff. You're trying to cut costs. You let people go from their job. Or you can downsize your company, okay? But we need to become more customer focused. When we have customer focused entrepreneurs or business professionals, they find ways to cut costs, but also ways that increase value, okay? So that leads us into the right side of our triangle, okay? This side over here. So the right side correlates to value, and so value equals V is value, P again is still price. In this case, value minus price, that's profit, but in this case, it's the buyer's profit. So you're creating value for the buyer, okay? The value, this is the value a buyer or a trade partner places on a product, service, or a benefit. And it is often very subjective. This value is subjective. One thing to remember is that we trade for things that we value more than the price. If we think the price is too high for the value we're going to get out of it, we're not going to buy it. Okay? This is where we have to, this right side of the triangle, this is where we have to develop that customer-focused mindset. We have to shift our mindset to the right, become more customer-focused. Because when we do that, we have to understand that we have to create value. And when we create value, that is where we get long-term success. Both parties need to benefit in exchange when value is created. Well, that's what happens. So when value is created, you get both parties benefit. And when our ability to create value is a key component in the marketplace. So let's continue to look at this right side of the triangle. What are some things that can influence value? Well, there's a lot. Day, time, environment, history, culture, experience, trust, circumstances, customer preferences, quality, added services, R&D or research and development, innovation, location, distribution channels, customer relationships, marketing and promotion, pricing, geographics and psychographics. These are things that we'll discuss in later lessons. Also, there can be payment options or branding. All of these things can influence value, and again, because value is subjective, right? But we can increase that value, it increases the profit. So let's take a look at the big picture, okay? So when we are looking at the whole transaction of our CPV triangle, okay, when we create value, creating value in the transaction creates win-win. We want to do it for both sides, not just one. So we get profit for the buyer and the seller, okay? So total value created. This is good profit. And good profit can create even more value because when we reduce costs in a way that creates value for the buyer and the seller, this increases the total value created in an exchange. Now, cutting costs versus creating value. Are these mutually exclusive? Are they in competition? Or can we do both? We can actually do both. So some examples. Look at the M&M and Mars Candy Company, right? They began to cut costs they innovated something called nougat, which nougat, all it is chocolate mixed with air. They also started using less expensive ingredients like peanuts, cookie wafers, caramel, etc. Okay? When they also introduced something called extrusion. This is where you push the ingredients through a tube and crimp the plastic packaging instead of the typical candy making process where you use molds and you used foil packaging. So they increased their value then by doing these things. They increased value by creating some of the best-selling candy bars like Snickers and Milky Way and some of the others as well. Another example is Mike Urasek. He was a carrot farmer in California. And one thing we have to, when you go to the supermarket, you think of these nice long carrots, well, they don't come out of the ground that way. Not all of them come out of the ground that way. And so Mike figured out that he could take those ugly carrots, right, and he could cut them down. He created this process, taking these ugly carrots and cut them down into smaller baby carrots. And when these baby carrots then, he took them to the marketplace and customers loved them, and so they just bought them up. They had a high value. And so he reduced his waste because instead of throwing away his carrots, he cut them into the baby carrots. He created value to the customers, became a high demand item, and he was actually able to charge a higher price for those baby carrots than the regular ones, which of course increases profit margin. So you can do both. Both of these cases are perfect examples of using the CPV triangle to create value on both sides, increasing the profit for both the buyer and the seller. And that essentially is our lesson on CPV triangle.